This podcast is brought to you by LMU Munich.
Please welcome our first speaker, Patrick Arminio, who will talk about Django and the modern web.
Okay. Hi everyone, can you hear me? Is it working? Yeah. Maybe. Okay. That's work. Yeah, that should be fine. I think. It's okay? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Hi everyone. So I'm Patrick. I work at Stink Users, which is a web agency. So we do mainly website for clients, and also we do internal projects from time to time. So I work as full stack developer, which means that I work on backend stuff and frontend stuff. Not at the same time, obviously, but it's quite nice because I have time to work on Django, and also I can have time to work on frontend stuff, which is quite interesting, especially these days. So you can find me on Twitter as Patrick91. So if you have any question, you can grab me later or send me a tweet. So Django and the modern web. This is like the topic of my talk. Basically, at my job, we try to use not really the latest technology, but the technology that always provide the best user experience to our user, because I think it's what we have to do. But first, let me do a quick recap on the web. So in 2004, like the term Web 2.0 was like mainstream. Everyone was talking about it, but only like a few applications were really using JavaScript and pushing the web to its boundaries, like Gmail or Google Maps. Django was not released yet, so it was still like the early days of the web. I think I was using PHP at this time just for like tests, but like a few years after jQuery was released, which was like a huge improvement on how we did like JavaScript development, because it was like a great tool to deal with issues from like even the DOM API to manipulate the DOM, or even inconsistency between the browsers. So jQuery was amazing, but still was not that good for like interactive application. Anyway, Django was released I think a few months after jQuery was popular, and we had some tool like request.is Ajax to make the website interactive. But still, like those applications were like simple stuff, were like mainly web pages with some forms that were enhancing the experience for the user, just like sending a comment without refreshing the page. But that was it. So in 2010, the web was becoming more complex. Like we were starting seeing more and more applications just using only JavaScript for the front end. And around that year, I think Backend was released. I think it was the first framework that I've been using for front-end development. It was okay. I mean, it was like probably, not sure what was the first, but it was one of the first using the concept of views and models in the front-end, which was quite cool, especially because I was a bit bored about doing front-end, because every time I was doing some stuff which was not too complex, but not even too easy, was becoming like a complex mess of JavaScript code. And I would like to mention React, because it's the framework that I'm personally using right now the most. It's really, really good. And I spent like a few months just watching videos and tutorials on how to use it, and I spent some time doing side projects on it. And I think it's one of the best frameworks right now. Of course, as we know, there are many other frameworks, like there's Angular, Ember, Polymer, React, as I said, and Vue JS. I'm gonna talk about some of those like later on. But first, let's say why we should change the way we do our website and use front-end frameworks. Well, one reason for me is the structure. As I said, I was not happy with how my code looked like with JavaScript development. So using a framework usually allows you to have a better structure for files and basically the whole structure of your website or application. And also the developer experience. For example, one of the most sold feature of those new frameworks is the ability to refresh the page like when you save the code. It's in like half a second, it's already changed. And also with some framework, you can just reload a part of the website. So for example, if you are changing a form you change a button, you don't have to refresh the old page to change just the button. It's going to change only the code, which is quite interesting, especially if you're working on a complex page that has got loads of state that, for example, to show a part of the form, you have to click 3 buttons. So it's really good. And also, I think we, as web developers, we have to bring the best look and feel for our website or application to the user. And those frameworks really are pushing us to use the latest technologies to use, and which brings me to a next point, which is progressive web app, which is just a term at the end coined by some Google developers. Basically, it's a collection of techniques to make the application look like a native application. So basically, it's using the latest JavaScript stuff. So it really means that application should be progressive, which means that it should work in any browser, even if, for example, JavaScript doesn't work, or if it's an old browser, or if connection is not really good. It should be responsive, which means that it works on any device. It works on my phone, on my tablet, on my laptop, or even on my TV. Because, as we know, we are getting more and more devices, and it's good that our application work on all of them. It also should work independently of the connection. So if the connection is not good, we should still be able to access the application or even to use it at any time. Also, it should be similar to an app, should feel and look like an application that you have already on your phone, because the user is been used to certain patterns in navigation, or just, that's what they expect from your application. And also it should be fresh, which means that basically the application should be always updated. So no matter what, so when you open the application, you should always have the latest version. And this is good. This is something that we can do with the web, because we don't have to wait for App Store reviews or just the release time of the App Store. And also, it should be safe, so it should be basically served via HTTPS. Most of the new APIs don't work on HTTP. You need to use HTTPS for those APIs. It should be discoverable. So this is something that I think like the search engine are still working on. But basically, there should be an API a specification to make the application discoverable, so you can search for it on Google or Bing anywhere. And also, for example, Microsoft is working on it. Basically, in their App Store, they will show also progressive web apps by default. So basically, if you have an application which is a web application, will be shown in the Microsoft App Store for their laptop or even just their OS, which is quite good because you don't have to submit an application to another store. And also, application should be re-engageable. So basically, we can use push notification to engage the user when something has happened. For example, I think there is an example of Lyft, which is if you know Uber, it's like Uber, but they also have like a web client, so you don't have to install the app to use their service, and it works with notification stuff. And they should be installable. Basically, one of the problems that we had with web applications that the user they have to fill the URL every time they want to use your application. So basically, there is a new API for this as well, so the user can install the application like it was a native application. So basically, it only works on Android now and on Windows OS, I think. But it's really good because the application really feels like it's a native one. And then application should be linkable, which means that you can share it to a friend and they don't have to install or download anything else. It just works. Also, would like to talk about a pattern that's becoming more popular now with application or even website, which is upshell. Basically, the idea is to provide the user a simple page without anything in it. So basically, it's going to have, like, for example, the header and a loading page. And this is really good for the user because they will see something as, like in a few milliseconds, they already have something on the screen. And meanwhile, in the meanwhile, you have time to download the rest of the application. And yeah, but this is to talk about Django, so let's talk about it. Is Django still a good choice for the backend? I use Django for most of my projects, and I think it still is because it really provides loads of stuff that simplify the development, especially the admin, something that I really like. The only issue is that since we are going to do anything, all the front-end stuff with JavaScript, we should not use templates anymore, or at least not for the front-end. We can use it for the admin if we need to, but the front-end should be something separated to the Django application. So basically, the front-end is going to be your template. And in order to communicate with the front-end from Django, we just use JSON, which has become the lingua franca of the web. So basically, everything that's all the data that we have to send to the client is going to be JSON. We can also use something different, but JSON is the most popular and probably most useful stuff. But yeah, Django doesn't really provide a way to serve JSON or to make API, but luckily for us, there is Django REST framework, which is amazing. Just saying, it's really good. Basically, you can create an API, just a few lines of code. It works with your models, and in a few minutes, you already have a basic API that you can customize and change it. Also, if you wanna use the latest new technology, there is also Graphene, which is basically an implementation, Python implementation of the GraphQL specification, which was made by Facebook. And this is overseen by Facebook, Twitter, and GitHub. It's becoming more and more popular. Basically, it's a declarative way to do query on the front end. So basically, for example, you can specify, if you have a blog, for example, you can specify that you need the list of the latest 5 posts with only the title, for example, for the sidebar. And basically, the backend will only serve that stuff. So you can change, if you are going to add more fields in the future, you can do it without changing the backend code, which is really useful if you are working on something that changes quite a lot, especially in development, and you have other co-workers that are working only on the front end, so you don't have to go and change the backend for that. But yeah, why APIs? As I said, for example, with Graphene or even with Django REST with some ways, you can specify, for example, just the fields that the user needs. This is good because you only send the data that the client really needs. So also if you have an application, mobile application, you can use API on that one as well. And even if you have to provide data to an external service, you can just use APIs because it's something that works anywhere. So I'm going to show you an example of architecture that I've been using at work and works really, really great for this kind of stuff. So this is, okay, looks okay, more or less. So basically this is the Django, the normal way to do applications. So you have a database, the models, the views and the forms, and also you have the standard templates. And then you have obviously the user that's interacting with the website with their browser. And also maybe you have an API and you also have an Android or iOS applications. So to make this work with new technology, you just need to remove the views, the forms, and the templates, and replace it with the front end, which is going to be JavaScript and HTML and JavaScript. And this actually has got a name, which is quite funny, I think. It's called Jamstack. So basically, it's going to be JavaScript API and the markup. So basically, what you send to the browser is only a page with HTML and a JavaScript tag, and basically, it's going to render your whole site. And this it's good because you only send small stuff, and if you're really good at it, you can also have it really, really performant. The only problem is that you lose server-side rendering. What I mean by that is that usually when we do standard application, we send the whole HTML to the user, which means that there's already something in the page, which is good for search engine optimization. So Google and Bing can index your page, and so it's gonna appear on their search engines. And also it's good because the page works also without JavaScript. But luckily for us, since we are using JavaScript, we can use a Node server for that. We can render the page on the back end, and we can serve that to the user. So you just need to add another server, which is going to be Node. And basically, when the user calls your website, it's going to call your Node server that's going to render the page for you. Okay, thank you. And you can also use your Node server to call the API at the same time, so you can get the data And this is something that I've been experimenting and work with this project. It works really well. I didn't really have, I mean, my server-side rendering is like, I think it's less than 100 lines. It's really easy. I didn't have to change like any code for that. Basically, it's gonna get the API and it's gonna serve the page. And also you can do something really smart with it. Basically, what we are doing now, it's a bit different. We have a node server that only runs when we change the page, the content of the page, because the last project we are working on, it's mainly static. So when, for example, the content of the page is gonna change, we fire up a node instance, we run the JavaScript, and then it's gonna render the page, and the page is gonna be static. So we are storing, for example, an S3. It's quite good because we don't have to keep the node server running all the times. Yeah. So how to get started? I think, like Rachel was talking about before, doing JavaScript is not that easy. But luckily for us, things are changing. JavaScript is becoming a different language. Is getting more and more features. Like, for example, async stuff, classes that like it's just syntactic sugar, but classes, and also it's becoming more Pythonic. It's gonna have generators, list comprehension, which is quite good because we don't have to learn any other stuff for that. So I'm gonna show you how to start with React, Polymer, and Vue JS, which are three of the most popular frameworks. First one is React. Basically, instead of doing like using boilerplates or all this stuff, there is this tool which is called React Create App. Basically, it's going to create a web application for you with all the stuff that you need. You don't have to, for example, to change any web app configuration because all that stuff is hidden. If you want to change the web app configuration, you can do it, but by default it works. And also, like the latest version supports, by default creates a progressive web app for you. So basically, you don't have to do anything particular to make it work offline or stuff. So basically, this is just an example of React component. Basically, now instead of doing like standard HTML stuff, you create components that you are using to build your application, which are like kind of Lego blocks for your application. So you import React. It's more or less like Python, apart from the order. And then you create a class which extends React component. The only particularity of this is that there is a render function which returns kind of HTML. This is called JSX, which is basically a way to use HTML inside JavaScript. It's a bit strange, but at the end, this one is only JavaScript code. Basically, if you can write this without JSX, but this feels really, really good. And someone was really worried about separation of content, so we had like JavaScript, HTML, and CSS all in different files. But I think this is a better way to do stuff because you have separation of concern by logic. So for example, if you have your login page, you have all the stuff in there. You don't have to switch between different JavaScript files or even kind of file like between HTML and CSS or JavaScript. And then there is Vue JS, which is another framework, which is it's quite powerful. It's really small and it's flexible. And it's got as well another CLI application, so you don't have to configure anything. So you can just run npm install Vue CLI, Vue init PWA in my app, and this is going to create a PWA application, so a progressive web app for you. And Vue.js works a bit different than, yeah, I cannot really read, but it's, if you know about web components, which I'm going to talk a bit later, basically it looks like that. So basically you have a template, a script, and the style. So basically it's similar to React, you have everything in one file, but it's more standard looking. So you have this template where you can use variables like Django, and then you have a simple script which is basically exporting an object with data function, which basically returns the data that's going to be used in the template. And you have the style. The only particular of this that the style is shared between all the applications. So if you want to use the example class only in this file, you have to do two things. Or you add some prefix this file, or use spam if you know it. You can also add a tag to style, which is called modules, I think. Or yeah, basically you can. The framework is going to change the class name for you, so you don't have to change the class names every time. And also the last one, which is the most exciting, I think for me, it's Polymer. And Polymer is it's not really a framework. It's more or less like a polyfill for the new standard which is coming out, which is called web components. Basically, a standard way to do components on the web. So yeah, you can still install use the CLI. You can just see it, and then it's going to ask you which template it's going to use. All of them use PWS by default. And so it's a bit small, but I think you can still read it. Basically, as I said, this is a standard way to do web components. So you can, there is an API for importing components. So you can do this without Polymer as well, but it's not going to work on older browsers for now because they still have to implement most of those API. So you can import like other elements. For example, it's importing the Polymer element, and then you can use this one is using the element called DOM module. Basically, you're using an element to create another element. But yeah, you can specify templates with styles, and the style only works in that specific component because it's like a wrapper on the component. So host refers to the current element, but all the classes, all the CSS that you are declaring there only works on that component because it's using an API is called Shadow DOM, which basically encapsulates your component inside of like a sandbox. And this is the same, for example, if you use a video tag on the web page, that's a web component, more or less. It's using Shadow DOM to provide the styles for the play button, the seek bar, etc. So it's using the same API as the web. And also you create a script, which is basically a static class, which is extending the Polymer element. There's returning a tag and some configuration, and then you define the component. So basically, when you have done this, you can use a tag called hello world on the web page, and the browser recognizes that, and it's going to show it, show the component. It's going to run this code and show the component to the web page. I'm really excited on this. I still haven't used it in a real project because like Polymer was not really mature. I think version 2 has been released a week ago at Google I/O. And probably it's the one I would like to use more and more. I think this is the best one that you can use even if you are migrating your application, your Django application, to a new frontend, because you can use it as it is without having any build system. You still have to use build system because since this is using like new APIs, you have to polyfill them for older browser. For example, the class syntax I'm working on Internet Explorer 11, and also since you're going to have loads of imports, if some of your user base is not using HTTP2, it's going to be really bad for the user because it's going to do loads of requests. Because, for example, you can import 50 components on one single web page. It's going to be really bad for the user. But yeah, if you use HTTP2, it's going to be fine because you can use server push for that. Yeah, I think that's it. So thank you. If you have any questions, you can just ask me. Fine. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
So, like, with any of these, like, how do I actually connect them to my Django API?
Okay.
Is there a standard way, or?
No, there is no standard way. So basically, you can just do API calls if you want, like using you can use, like with jQuery we were doing $.ajax. You can use any library, like the standard way is called fetch. But if you want to, like, for example, persist the data offline, the stuff, I think it depends on what framework you're using. For example, I think, as I said, React is the most popular one. It's got everything for it. There is already everything. So basically, there is a way. There is a tool called Redux, which basically it's like a database for the front end. It's storing all your data in there, and there's easy way to persist it offline. So basically, when the user opens your application, everything is already there. But no, there is no standard way to do that. I mean, you only have a way to fetch the data, but there is no way to store it on the front end. There are some API. I mean, the API to store it on, like, for offline, it's called local storage. but yeah, there is no way, like, no standard stuff for it.
So you said you rendered a web page with the JavaScript code on a web page with a Node.js server on the
Yes.
backend, and you set it to increase so that the search engine can
Yes.
scan your site. But is it also for performance reasons?
Yes, so it's a bit complicated, this stuff, because, well, I said search engine optimization, but it's mainly for Facebook, because the website we are doing needs to be shown on Facebook. If there is no content in it, it's going to only show the title without images. So that's actually the main reason why we are doing it. But yeah, for performance, it's okay. I mean, basically the user is going to receive the HTML with the CSS and all the stuff. So basically the application is going, the website is going to render quite fast. The only problem is that the JavaScript, so to run the interactive part of the website, you still have to run JavaScript, which takes a bit of time anyway. So basically you will have a page which doesn't really work if it's done. It depends on how it's done, but if you have JavaScript interactions on it, it's not going to work. You have to wait for JavaScript to be parsed and executed.
So, and do you cache that in the Redis backend or static context that you render with the Node.js?
So basically, our setup is a bit different than that, actually. So basically, we have a Lambda function on Amazon that every time something has changed on the CMS, we are using content pool for the CMS. We are not using Django. We are using Django just for user submission stuff. So every time something changes on the backend, on the CMS, it's going to fire the function, and the function is going to render the HTML file, and it's going to store it on S3. And also we are storing the JSON of the Redux store. So basically the user doesn't have to download the web page anymore, this data again. If you want, I can show you some code later on.
Okay, I think we could take one last question.
So, you said that server-side rendering is important for SEO reasons, but Google already does render also JavaScript libraries. Is there a specific benefit that you say that, okay, this is worth the effort of doing server-side rendering for SEO reasons or not?
So I think it's worth doing because there is not only Google as a search engine, and also it's like I'm talking about even Twitter and Facebook, because they show like parts of your website on when you share it on it. So if it's just JavaScript, it's not going to be shown. And also I'm not really sure that Google really works well, because imagine that you have something like with the app shell architecture, so it's basically going to load like an empty page, just a title. I'm not sure if Google waits for the data to come in. I don't think there is a standard, like if they say how long they wait the page to be rendered. So if you have like some API codes which takes, I don't know, 3 seconds, and Google is going to wait only 1 second, that's not going to work.
Okay, thank you again, Patrick.
Thank you.